The following podcast has not been rated. You're listening to Fullbacks Are People Too, The Fact. And here's your host, CJ Newman.
You're listening to Fullbacks Are People Too, The Fact.
I feel like I'm saying this every couple of months, but Back from the Dead, the FAPT is going to air again, and hopefully all five of you out there listening are going to appreciate this episode. Got the Chad, Chef Chad Wells, coming back to the show. Chef, how the hell are you?
Good, man. How you doing, CJ? Glad to finally get the time to get back at this.
Yeah, I concur with that. Both of our lives have been hell for the past couple of weeks, so things slowing down there in the culinary industry, or no?
No, it's definitely not slowing down. It's busy. It's booming. As most people probably don't know, opened a new restaurant with some really great people back in October, and it's been wild. We're exceeding expectations as far as volume and service, and it's been really, really good. But as a chef, that also means that it's really, really tiring. But I can say, thankfully, I did not miss one Ravens game this year. And that is hard for a chef to say that I did not miss one Ravens game.
Shit, it's hard for an adult to say, especially hell in my position, being out in the I can't really talk about my job too much, but being in the I can't talk about my job industry, it's really hard to say the same. I actually almost missed the damn 49ers game, but I streamed it during one of the classes I had to go to.
Hey man, you're lucky you're able to do that. It is nice that we get to with the different apps and things that we have now that we can even watch them when we're not at home.
Oh goodness, I probably would have just hooked class if I didn't have the ability to do it, to be honest with you.
Hey man, I wouldn't have missed that game for anything.
Right, it was pretty damn good. I think it ended 20-17, something like that.
Yeah, that was a killer game. Killer game. And the 49ers, they looked like a Super Bowl team on that Sunday. Unfortunately, so did the Ravens, but only one of them is there. And that was a game that many people thought was going to be the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, a lot of people were predicting a rematch of Super Bowl 42. That would have been fucking awesome 12 years later, but it was not to be. But that team definitely has something going on. We're going to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl matchup coming up in a little bit. But like we were talking about with the Ravens here, let's go ahead and get this out of the way now. You and I are pretty diehard Ravens fans, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we had a hell of a season, didn't we? A regular season?
Absolutely, but I get my "I told you so" moment, CJ. You have to
Go
let
ahead.
me have this. When before the season started, we did our way too early predictions. Who did I say was winning the division?
You did say the Ravens.
And who did I say was going to be a badass this season?
Lamar Jackson.
Brandon. That's all I'm going to say. Brandon called me out. I get this. Lamar Jackson was an absolute stud. We talked about this. I think you, me, and Tyler talked about this in one episode where I said I thought Lamar Jackson was going to be an animal this year. I thought that he was going to take the next step, and that NFL teams are just not built to stop a kid like this. He was better than I expected. I don't think there's anybody. I don't think there's any pundit or any person who's an expert outside of the Ravens organization that expected this kid to be that good. And man, it was a special year, man. I don't know that football has seen anything like this in a long time. And it's really great as a Ravens fan that we have a true superstar right now. I mean, this kid is like Michael Jordan and cleats. Everybody loves Lamar right now. It's just amazing to see. And it's cool to be a part of, and it's been cool to witness. I don't know that they'll replicate this ever again, and it's unlikely, but God damn it, it was an awesome season this year.
All right, Chad, make sure you have your health insurance card ready because I'm sure we're going to have to take you to the emergency room with you breaking your arm, patting yourself on the back there. But,
Hey man, I broke my arm fist pumping.
yeah, plenty of times this season, man, especially that stretch towards the end where we were just blowing out motherfuckers.
Yeah, man, and you know what? The sweetest one, CJ, and we got to be there was that the Patriots game. That was
Oh,
it
man.
was unreal. It was unreal. I've been to a lot of games being a season ticket holder, but that stadium was on fire that night. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was a total playoff atmosphere in there, and then the actual playoff game was even more electric. Until it happened.
Yeah. So, for those of you that don't know, Chef and I went to the Ravens Patriots game. It was a Monday night game, and it was quite exciting. It was nighttime, and we were
It
wearing.
was a Sunday night, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're right. Sorry. That was my first SNF. Last 2 seasons ago, we went to the game against the Texans. That was Monday night. So, all right, got that off my bucket list. Now all I need really is a 4 o'clock game and a Thursday night game. But nonetheless, we went to this game, and man, we were sitting in front of some Patriots fan, like what, about 5 of them behind us.
Oh yeah, man. They were the most cocky sons of bitches before the game and halfway through. I remember. Do you remember the guy made that shitty comment to me? I took a picture of the two of us, and he was like, "I remember my first football game." You remember
Yeah,
that? Right at the
yeah,
beginning of the game, and I turned around and I said, "Hey, let me take a picture of the first time you got to see him lose." And he said, "Fuck you," and said, "Take the picture." I still have a picture of my phone of those dudes giving us the finger, and then I have a picture in the phone of me and you both giving them the finger, and them like with their heads down at the end of the game. Because I remember they talked shit to us nonstop. It must have been what it was like mid fourth quarter when they were finally like, "All right, this game's over, guys."
yeah. I just remember they were when we were up 14-0. They were saying, "You just watch, we're gonna come back." And I'm thinking in the back of my head, I've seen them do it before. But as I went to turn around, as we were blowing that ass out, I went to talk shit, and they were gone.
Well, you know what? Early in this Ravens season, man, it was very discouraging. They had the 3 games. Everybody likes to talk about the big two where they gave up 1,000 yards of offense, and the game that bothered me a lot. Um, you and I were there. Was the Arizona game,
Yeah,
week 1 of the season. I thought that from that game, I said this team looks bad. This is scary. Like they didn't look good. The defense was horrific. There was injuries everywhere. They still had Kenny Young at linebacker. And after those 3 games, that game, and then we had their ass kicked by the Browns. They got beat by the Chiefs. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I never thought that our offense would be putting up yards because the offense was putting up a lot of yards. They weren't scoring as much as you would think they would, but they were putting up, crazy yards, and the defense was horrific. I mean, they gave up almost 1,500 yards of offense in 3 weeks, and it's a testament to DaCosta and to Wink Martindale. Like the moves they made were minor. They got guys off the street, and they turned the whole damn thing around instantly.
yeah. Those inside linebackers that we picked up, the one that used to be on our team, Bynes, turned out really well. And then what was it, Fort?
Yeah, Ford
FRT?
and Giad Ward was another
Yeah,
one. They got Parnell McPhee back, and I think he ended up getting injured. Um,
yeah.
and in that little stretch, they got Jimmy Smith back. Um, you know, it
Traded for
seemed,
Packers.
yeah, it seemed like they traded for Peters. It seemed like Earl Thomas started to finally put the pieces together. I think Wink did a tremendous job disguising the fact that they really had no pass rush. I mean, we don't know how good Judon actually can be because he had no help. And I if I had to guess today, I would say that Judon is either getting franchised or he's gone. But he was really the only true weapon they had of getting to the quarterback off the edge. And Wink did a really good job disguising some of these blitzes throughout the season and making it easier for our secondary. And they did a great job with coverage sacks and things of that nature because without doing that, there's no chance they're getting to the quarterback with the people they had on the edge.
Oh, absolutely. And you just got to think here, some of the moves that were made with some of our starters either being traded, getting injured, honestly, the second string helped out even more. So just think about it. We got a 6th-round pick in Chuck Clark. I think, honestly, he was the hero of the team.
I agree with you completely. The whole team turned around when they put the green dot on him.
Yes, and for those of you that don't know, the green dot is the communication helmet. So the defensive coordinator or whoever is on the sidelines making the calls out to the defensive captain or defensive helmet is in charge of actually receiving the communications. It's one way. You can't talk back to them because that would be fucking hilarious, just sitting there arguing with the guy on the field. But yeah, Chuck Clark got it for the first couple weeks. It was one of the inside linebackers. I think it was Kenny Young, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think they had it on Kenny Young at one point. Man, and he was a player that I had high hopes for, and he just, man, he did not even come close to meeting expectations at middle linebacker. They put, Peanut in, and middle linebacker is clearly not his thing. He's clearly a weak side guy, and he did really well over there. I still think that going forward, their linebacking core leaves quite a bit to be desired. I mean, they have nobody who can set the edge. Nobody.
It's very true, especially if Judon's going to be leaving. But I do agree with you. If we are going to use the franchise tag or the transition tag, which, by the way, you can use both as part of the collective bargaining agreement, we're going to go ahead and use it on Judon if we don't get a deal done. But we could also let him walk at the same time. We might just click the reset button on the edge and see what we can do in the draft or in the free agency.
I don't know. I have very mixed feelings about that. I feel like Judon has been a tremendous player for us. He's been a really good guy. I don't firmly believe that Judon is elite. I mean, I think he's shown like a lot of signs of being like a top guy. And we also, to be fair, we've never seen him with help on the other side. We saw him with a beat down Terrell Suggs last year. This season is just finishing. We really didn't see much except for pressure up the middle from Williams and Pierce. Pierce is another one. I think he's gone. I'm not going to miss him too much, to be honest with you. But I think that using the franchise tag on him on one side, I feel like using the franchise tag on him might be a good move only because we don't know if we have anything else. And if we lose him and they can't replace him because let's face facts here, the pass rushers they've gotten in the past 2 drafts have not panned out the way we expected. We all know that. So it's almost like since Zadarius Smith, when we lost him, we did have him with Judon for a little bit. And I think that letting him go without a replacement is going to be problematic. And I think that trying to depend on the draft with a late draft pick is going to be tough too, especially when there's so many other needs because there are some gaping holes in this team.
Well, there certainly are, especially looking at offensive line. We've got to look at. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to retain Mr. Ingram next year. I hope we can. God, he was such a big boost. But looking forward to the seeing what the offseason brings with a whole bunch of these free agents hitting the market, seeing what we could pick up. But as far as the edge rush, man, it's been terrible. But to go back to one thing that you were talking about with Terrell Suggs, I wouldn't necessarily say he was beat down. He's just been meeting the quota that he has for probably the past 5 or 6 years. And this is just my stance on how he has been playing. He comes out of the gate swinging. For the first maybe 10 games, he's fucking elite.
I'll say it's 6 games max.
It's 6 to 10. I'll go with you on that. Meet you in the middle somewhere. So it's 6 to 10. He's kicking ass. He's getting sacks. You're talking maybe he's defensive player of the year, but then he gets tired because he's the only player that was with the Ravens that we didn't go with the Ravens mentality on of rotating him out. He was damn near on every down out there.
You know what, though? I think that a lot of that mentality has come with Wink Martindale, though, because we have seen, with defensive coordinators in the past, especially, Dean Pease here in the Super Bowl season, there were players that did not belong on that field that were kept on the field solely because of who they were. Ray Lewis was very rarely pulled out in 2012, and Ray Lewis was an outright liability. And
Yeah.
anyone who watches the game, he's my favorite player. I love watching him play in his prime. He's one of the best linebackers or even best defensive players I've ever seen, arguable the best. but he was a liability. We can go to another person who is the best, and I'll say it over and over again, the best safety to ever play the game. Ed Reed was a liability his final 2 seasons with the Ravens, and they played him on nearly every snap. I think Terrell Suggs got that same benefit of saying, all right, he is a veteran presence that no one in their right mind would disrespect their presence. You know what I mean? But we saw that when people had the balls to do it, it was a problem. We watched Michael Vick destroy Ed Reed one time. I think that was 2011, maybe 2012. But nobody wanted to test the guy because you know what? You throw at him enough times or you throw into his area enough times, eventually you're going to get picked off. It's
Yeah.
going to happen here or there, but you could take the risk. I think Terrell Suggs was that same type of player until last season. For some reason, he was the one they kept on the field a lot. And that also may have been to disguise the fact or to just help the fact that there was nobody better even when he was run down. Because I'm not going to ever take anything away from Suggs. That guy's a Hall of Famer. He's an animal, but at the end of the day, you do have a guy who wears out. And when he wears out, he's a liability. And anybody's a liability. Father Time's undefeated, and we all know this.
Yes, very much so. And we're going to cover a little bit of Father Time Undefeated in just a couple minutes. But as far as going back to the old Dean P scheme, the only rotations that I can recall us doing consistently, especially during that Super Bowl season, we did rotate out a defensive line quite a bit.
Yeah, the D line has always moved, always.
And the other edge rusher was always rotated out too. So you always he wasn't there that year, but we always rotated like Doomerville and Courtney Upshaw. We rotated those guys.
We would rotate kind of the pass rush specialist, it seems like. But at the same time, this is, the past 2 years have been a little bit different because I feel like these past 2 years have been the first, maybe 3. I have to go back and look at the roster, but maybe these past 2 to 3 years are the first years where the Ravens really didn't have that luxury guy that was just kind of sitting there that they knew they wouldn't be able to re-sign, who goes to another team and sucks, but for some reason could just mash people when he was with us. We've seen that a lot over the years. Paul Kruger. Let's look at that guy for a second. That guy wasn't worth shit, but he could get to the fucking quarterback when he was fresh. And he's the type of guy that, we haven't had a lot of those. And where, as in previous years, we've had a lot of these like luxury pass rushers just kind of laying around that was somebody we picked up in the draft because our drafts were better than they are now. And, I'm not going to knock DaCosta because we really haven't seen much of what he's done. And what we have seen has been tremendous. But, we didn't really have that luxury guy sitting around. So maybe that's why, this changed a little bit and we weren't rotating as much. Where I see that what Wink Martindale does that I think is really nice, he rotates everything. His players are pretty much always fresh unless he can't get them off the field. And it seems like the way that they've played this season, the defense was always fresh. The Ravens, if they wanted to hold the ball, they were going to hold it for 9 minutes and get away with it. And so when it came to the defensive side, they could just do whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, and they were constantly fresh. And that's something that we have not seen in a couple of years in Baltimore.
Especially at corner, and we have never had corners like we do now.
No. There's not many teams that have had corners like Baltimore has right now. And, there's been a lot of miscommunications and errors. Is now a good time to talk about Marcus Peters?
Yeah, go ahead. Feel free.
Man, I got to say, when they picked him up,
I was skeptical.
I'm more skeptical now. I'm more skeptical now than I was then, to be honest with you. In coverage, is he as good as Jimmy Smith?
In coverage, I would say he's in zone coverage. I'd say he's pretty damn good. When given the right scheme, he's a playmaker. But you've brought this up before. I've noticed it before. When you're asking him to tackle, to cover the run, to just go after the person with the ball, even if he's not on your side of the field, just try to track the other person down and tackle him. You can't get much out of him. But if you need a pick six every once in a while, God damn it, guess who's there?
Yeah, but I almost feel as if I feel like down the stretch with him, don't get me wrong, he's a tremendous pickup for we we traded Vedvik to the Vikings for a 5th-round pick, which fuck them. That was a dumb move on their part. They take him, and then we traded that 5th-round pick to the Rams and got Peters. I'm totally good. The Ravens clearly exceeded the value of that 5th-round pick and got Marcus Peters. There's no question in my mind there. And the guy did have 2 pick sixes, but
Yep.
I feel like maybe it's just what they've had to do with the talent they had this year around him. But I generally felt like if he was in coverage and he got beat on a route, he just gave up immediately. And especially fast receivers. If fast receivers got past him in the first 8 yards, he was done. And that was something that bothered me tremendously, down the stretch with him. However, then you'd start to see it and you get really mad. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, Marcus Peters, amazing pass defense in the red zone. He's nasty in the red zone. He is nasty in the red zone. But it's almost if you look at him, Ed Reed would play just a weird zone. No one really knew which side he was going to go to. He would just kind of roam around a little bit and he would just kind of watch the quarterback's eyes and he'd make a big ass play. And then he did it so frequently that nobody would test him anymore. I feel like Marcus Peters kind of does that as a corner. There was one pick he had. I think it was against the Rams that he had the pick six, right?
It was against the Rams, if I'm not mistaken, and also the Seahawks. The first game.
It was the Seahawks game. So that Seahawks game, he had this one pick where it was very reminiscent of how Ed Reed would play, but only at a different position. It was almost
that thing. It was awesome.
It was almost like he was playing a strange zone and looked like he was breaking to one side. And then the second that ball was thrown, he was right in front of it, 10 yards to the left. And, when he does things like that, it's phenomenal.
Bro, why the fuck did he throw that? The player that he was throwing for was 10 yards off.
Yeah.
I didn't get that.
I didn't understand it either, but hey, I'll take it. It was 6 points, but.
First pick he threw all season.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson.
Yep. Oh man, that was, I think, and I think people have forgotten about it, but I think that was Lamar Jackson's signature game of his career.
That was the turning point of the whole season, in my opinion.
Yeah, we definitely saw another level of energy and passion come out of that kid that we didn't see that again the rest of the season. But and this is what aggravated me about the playoff game so much is that in that Seattle game, the receivers were behaving exactly like they were in the playoffs. They were dropping everything. Andrews had a case of the drops, couldn't catch shit. We were having trouble catching traction running on the ground. Lamar was making some plays here and there. He started throwing a little bit off target. When they came out at halftime after that game, they came out and they gave him some stuff that he's really good at, which his money route is slants. He could throw slants, hitches, a little bit of screens here and there. They did just a little bit of that for him. And you saw that kid's confidence erupt. He went crazy. I really felt like in that Seattle game, Lamar Jackson beat an NFL defense by himself. The second half of that game, he just went apeshit. And I don't understand why in that playoff game that when they abandoned all hope way too early in that game, I don't understand why they didn't come out after halftime and try to do some of those confidence maneuvers and let Lamar be Lamar. I don't understand it. And I'm not an NFL coach, so clearly that's not for me to those aren't the decisions that I'm ever going to be able in a position to make. But I just don't understand why all season, if things weren't working, they did it with against Houston. They started giving him a few confidence plays, and then all of a sudden the whole game just broke wide open. Why did that not happen?
And if I recall the Houston game correctly, it was a stalemate for almost the whole quarter, and then we just went the fuck off.
Well, that's what they did. And you know what? The Houston game was almost a very similar game plan. If you recall, when they played Houston, they came out throwing the ball a lot. And the throws were not great. Some of them were really nice, but they were being dropped. There was just a lot of it seemed like an awkward game plan. But once there was a couple catches through the middle of the field and maybe one catch outside the numbers and Lamar broke one or two runs on his own, they just went insane because now they don't know what to defend anymore. And I just do not understand in this playoff game why Like, do they not trust Gus Edwards to not to Mark Ingram was clearly hurt. There was clearly some rust. There was clearly a lot of things happening, but why did they never go to what worked at all when the game was still within reach?
Well, my view on it, from going back and watching the tape, they did attempt very early on to do what got them there to the dance, that was doing the run. But what I noticed was, for some reason, Dean Pease wanted to act like a defensive coordinator, and he actually got his defensive line to do what is called a pinch. He was able to get the defensive line. I'm not talking down to you, I'm talking to the audience. He was able to get the defensive line to pull all of the offensive linemen together so they weren't able to open up the holes necessary for the run game to really, really get established. So using that pinch that they were able to pull off, especially on those fourth down attempts when Lamar was trying to run it, they pinched and were not able to all over.
And those were stupid calls. You and I both agree that those should have been points being taken in 2 of those. However, pinch, no pinch, the Ravens are a team that says, you know what? You do what you want to do. We don't give a fuck. We're going to do what we're doing anyway, and you stop us. That's what they've done all season. Part of this is, I have a little bit of a theory on one end, but pinching, doing anything that they're doing on the D line, explain to me how Gus Edwards had 9 yards per carry and only had 3 carries in that game. 3. Explain that. It's inexplicable, dude. There's no, I get it. You're down. You stop relying on the run quite a bit, and I completely understand that. However, there's certain passing plays that work. How many screen passes were thrown in that game, in a playoff game? I know the answer. How many were thrown?
I can't recall one.
0.
Yeah.
How many slants were thrown in that game?
There had to have been more than one.
3.
I thought so.
3. And you know what every slant was?
Probably 2 piece.
Big fucking gains. Big one.
Yep.
3 were thrown. 3. There was 1 after halftime, 2 in the first half. There was not 1 hitch route thrown. Not 1. And you go look and you say, what in the fuck are you doing? Like, I get them to try to get the ball downfield, but if there's a confidence problem, I think that everyone in the world can see that what Baltimore Ravens did, whether they were on fire or not on fire, they still stuck to their guns and did what they were going to do. I think that in the first quarter of that game, there was a lot of shit that, there's a lot of 50-50 stuff in football that you can't prepare for, but it's going to go one way or the other. And, penalties and silly shit. And I think that a lot of that stuff did not go in the Ravens' favor in the first quarter of the game. The Mark Andrews drop that turned into an interception. The horse collar on Lamar Jackson.
It was very devastating after the interception. I think the team just lost the wind in their sails at that point, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seemed like a turning point, but I can tell you from being at the game, no matter what the team felt, every time that offense came back on that field, dude, that crowd was insane. Insane. And they did not stop until it was clearly out of reach. Dude, when the offense would step on the field, people were jacked. And when the defense was on the field, dude, you would think that, there was a terrorist attack from how loud the fucking stadium was anytime the Titans offense was on the field. It was nuts. And they didn't stop. They stayed behind this team all the way until midway through the third quarter, where it was like, all right, now this is just fucking over. And dude, I've been to a lot of football games in my life, and I've been a season ticket holder for a long time, and I've never seen a stadium that energized, that loud, that pumped. I mean, you could feel it in your blood. And like I said, I just did. I remember in our group text, I was saying, I'm like, halftime's coming, man. I'm still confident. They came out after halftime not doing anything that worked. They came out after halftime doing the opposite of what works for this team. And I don't know, it's still a head scratcher. I can't say I'm bitter about it because this truly was an amazing season that I feel like we're fortunate to get to see an evolution like this. But if that game, if the Ravens would have came in that game and it would have been like 27-24 Tennessee, I'd have felt good. I'd have been like, man, you know what? We just got our ass kicked. These are two very similar teams. They just impose their will on you and run time of possession. And you could easily say the better team won at that point. I don't feel like the better team won this game. I just feel like one team came out and laid a fucking egg. I think the coaching staff laid a fucking egg. I think that the defense was atrocious. They couldn't tackle anybody. I think Lamar got in his own head way too early and started throwing shit all over the place. And I don't even think the weather conditions that were presented were favorable to a heavy passing game. He made 69 passing attempts in that game. 69. Do you know how many times he dropped back to pass? Fucking 76. There's no quarterbacks dropping back to pass 76 times. And you know what the other 7 times were? If there were 69 passing attempts, hits, the fumble, sacks. Like, I don't know. I have no words for it. I just really have no words for it.
All right, we've officially hit the half-hour mark. We have talked about the Ravens for 30 minutes.
All right, let's move on. But next year, I'm still saying the Ravens win the division.
Until somebody proves me otherwise, I'm gonna have to agree with you. But yeah, the Browns were not what we thought they were, or what I thought they were.
They were what I thought they were.
But yeah, and by the way, who the hell is this guy that got fired from there? Who's that head coach?
I think we posed this question a couple times. What is it like?
I was told that I should know who he is, but just for some reason I don't know why.
Michael Sautepan or something?
Yeah, it might be something to do bathroom. I don't know.
What was it? Michael Armoire?
No.
Kitchens. That's it. Kitchens.
Oh, I was going to say Frederick Living Room, but okay. Yes, Freddie Goddamn Kitchens is no longer employed in the NFL. What a shocker! And nobody's picked him up as an offensive coordinator, as a quarterback, as a quarterback coach, as a water boy, as anything
yes,
so far.
I believe he is with the Giants. They just signed him yesterday. Hold on.
Freddie Goddamn Kitchens.
If you add the goddamn when you type in it in Google, if you type in Freddie Goddamn Kitchens, it'll come up. It'll come up in bigger font.
Oh, I thought it was going to bring up the FAFT. Let's see here. He's previously coached with the. No, he's not signed with anybody according to his wiki, at least.
Hold on 1 second. I just read this article. Unless it never went through, it came to fruition. He came through. He was some weird shit.
This is riveting podcasting right here.
Yeah, we clearly did our research.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, tight end. He's a tight ends coach for the Giants. Yes, according to ESPN 4 days ago. He is the tight ends coach.
I see this. It's also on NFL.com. Did not see that coming. So he went from being the head coach to.
Do you know why that's not news? Because no one knows who the fuck Freddie Kitchens is, so no one cares. It didn't even show up in Google searches.
Yeah, I had to dig for that, actually. The fact that you said Giants, I had to add Giants to the end of Freddie Kitchens, and then it came up.
Yeah.
But their offensive coordinator is goddamn Jason Garrett, isn't it?
Yeah. Can I also say one other thing here?
Yeah.
Like I said, Brandon last time. I love you, Brandon, but I had to say it. What I have to say this time, Tyler. Because once again, all my other picks were straight garbage. But the two that I felt very educated about, I feel like I nailed them. Freddie Kitchens is the reason the Browns sucked. And I said that I thought they would win less than 8 games, but they'd be in a lot of games. They're worse than I thought. Freddie Kitchens is clearly the reason that team was terrible. What do you think?
I thought they were going to surpass what they did last year despite coaching, but I was clearly wrong. The coaching held them down. That was some shit play this year. God, I remember the game against did you see the game against the Patriots for them?
Oh, yeah.
There was a shovel pass that Baker tried to make. He threw it right to a fucking defensive lineman. Right into the hands of him. The guy was like, thank you, and then he ran off.
Dude, I believe what I said is that when you have that much talent, you've put together you're trying to assemble a very intricate puzzle, and I don't think Freddie Kitchens is the guy to put that together. That being said, I don't know much about their current coach that they have, but if they can get this shit right, and this guy can learn to appease all parties, the Browns can be a threat. They have the talent on paper to beat anyone, but it's a matter of managing that because they've got some very strong personalities on that team, and you know, I think Jarvis Landry, he's talked about frequently as a beast, but I think I think he's an underrated player. I think he's better than he gets credit for. OBJ is a beast. We know that. On the offensive side of the ball, dude, they have Chubb and Kareem Hunt. That's filthy. Baker, he's can do some boneheaded shit, but he might not have had the person to work with. He's had Freddie Kitchens his whole career.
They still got an Njoku, right?
Yeah, and Njoku, he was injured throughout the season.
Yeah, he came back off of IR, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the game against Baltimore was his first game back, I believe.
Yeah, they do. They definitely have the talent, but if you have no coaching there, then you got the island of misfit toys. So you probably don't know much about this guy that they picked up as their head coach, but Tyler probably does. It's it's the offensive coordinator from the Minnesota Vikings. He was the straight up offensive coordinator 2 seasons ago. He took over for oh God, who was the quarterbacks coach from the Eagles that got promoted to the offensive coordinator?
I know what you're talking about.
I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but apparently I should know his name, like Freddie Kitchens. But this guy, they picked up. He was the offensive coordinator 2 seasons ago, straight up, and the offense was okay. But last year they brought in Gary Kubiak as a offensive consultant. So I feel like the Browns made a dumb move in getting this guy for their head coach because the offense that this guy had for his bread and butter was not his own.
Yeah, and Kubiak is he? I guess what I saw the other day is he's now the offensive coordinator for the Vikings.
Yeah, that was the only move they could make.
Well, it was a brilliant move and a great move and a good move for Kubiak too. And I think I'm pretty sure that any team in the league that was Coach Needy would have wanted Gary Kubiak, but I think that Kubiak has made it pretty clear at this stage in his life that he's not interested in a head coaching position anymore. I don't know if you recall, we had a discussion where I thought that this was way before the move was made, but I thought Joe Flacco was going to go to Denver because of the Kubiak connection.
Yeah. And then I still don't know what the fuck happened with Kubiak in Denver.
He didn't get along. It was apparently there was a difference in philosophy between him and that coach, and they decided to mutually part ways. And then he ended up as an offensive consultant. And that happened right before they got Flacco.
I mean, did they have a falling out there in Denver, or it still doesn't make sense to me? Like I thought him and Elway were just thick of thieves.
I think that there wasn't a whole lot of information about it. It was just whoever they had hired to be their coach, and Kubiak just had like a very different philosophy in terms of how their offense should be run.
You know what? I bet you I know what it is. Minnesota, when he got there, he was able to bring his son onto the coaching staff.
Oh, I'm sure that played a role, just like Dean Pease. Didn't Dean Pease just retire again?
You're gonna make me fact check that.
I'm pretty sure he did.
Name wrong. Dean Pease is a former defensive coach. Yeah, looks like he retired.
Yeah, so Kubiak, I'm surprised he hasn't retired with all of the health issues that he's had, and he's a great coach. He's a coach that I admire a lot. But thank God he didn't end up somewhere like the Browns because I would not want to have to fucking deal with him and his run scheme with running backs like that. But the rest of the NFL is about to have to deal with Dalvin Cook, which is going to be, if he can stay healthy, that's going to be rough.
That's what I was just about to say, and that's a big if, though. And honestly, running backs are a dime a dozen because nobody takes running backs in the first 3 rounds unless they're fucking studs like Christian McCaffrey anymore. So you can get somebody in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, even 7th round to complement Dalvin Cook. And the guy they got now, I can't recall his name off the top of my head at the 2nd string. He's not bad either. So they got a good 1-2 punch. It's just they really need to get that zone run scheme going like full speed if they really want to take advantage of that run game, because they got bottled up a couple times this year.
And they're also going to have to get they're going to have to play around with how they operate with their quarterback too, because that zone run scheme with the way Kubiak does is very unique. Where he's he's using passes to set up a big run. He's doing a lot of different things, and he's also using runs to set up a deep ball. And I feel like a quarterback like Flacco was ideal in his system. Um, that being said, does Flacco end up with the Vikings as a backup? I don't, I doubt it, but he's somebody that knows Kubiak's system very well. But I do want to disagree with something that you said. I think
Okay.
that running backs being a dime a dozen, I think we're about to see another shift in that. I think with what the Ravens did this year, with what Tennessee did this year, the Ravens were the only one of those teams that I think had a quarterback that was different than the rest. But if you go and you look, the most successful teams this year were teams that went back to basics and ran the ball down people's throats.
Very much so.
And
I don't disagree with you, but I think we're a year off, to be honest
no,
with you.
I don't think it's going to happen now, but we have a good 4 or 5 years where we're going to start seeing an evolution backwards. And, the only reason we're not going to see it fast is college isn't doing it again. So, college is developing these ballers that just throw the ball all over the place. NFL defenses have to still be prepared for that. That was actually my reasoning. I don't know if you remember this, of why I thought the Ravens would be so successful is that every team in the NFL is developing defenses that are smaller and faster to try to eliminate these passing quarterbacks and take their game away.
And that was the downfall of the Patriots this year, because if you look at their front four, their front three, they were all small defensive linemen. Nobody was big on that line.
But they were the Patriots were tough to pass the ball on, very tough. But then you go look at the teams like Baltimore, Seattle, San Francisco, Tennessee. These are teams that just ran the fucking ball, and as we're seeing a defensive shift, you're going to start seeing the offenses come back to this running. And that's why I think like the Ravens stand a chance of being good for a couple more years. Tennessee is going to be good for a couple more years if they keep Derrick Henry, which they'd be crazy not to. San Francisco is going to be good for a couple more years because no one is going to, let's talk AFC North. No one except for a team that is competing with Baltimore in the AFC North. No other team in the NFL is going to build a team specifically to stop the Ravens' game plan when they're almost playing a different sport than the rest of the NFL. They're going to say, all right, the other 31 teams in the league are throwing the ball like crazy. Why would we lose to 31 teams when we'll do our best to beat this one? But, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense yet. But
Disagree
it is
with
coming.
Don't disagree at all. And before I forget, because I will, I want to touch on that Titans thing one more time. They have got a decision to make this offseason because I don't think they're going to be able to afford to pay both Henry and Tannehill. And quite frankly, Tannehill looked like he earned something this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's a story, man. I mean, he was the most efficient passer in the league once he went to that team. I mean, they're going to be insane. They're going to be insane to keep Mariota over him because literally they snapped another quarterback into his offense and crushed. Tony Romo made the best point about the Titans, and it was in that Chiefs game where they lost. But he was like, "Do you see what they're doing?" He was like, "They're literally just lining up. The defense is moving, trying to change things, and the offense isn't flinching." And then he's like, "You know what? They don't give a shit if you see what they're doing. They're just telling you this is what we're doing." You know what I mean? And like, that's exactly what the Titans did. They just said, "You know what? We're running the fucking ball." You could stack anybody you wanted up against them, and they were still going to run the fucking ball. You know what I mean? Like, they pretty much said, "Hey guys, we're running up the middle. Come on," and then they do it anyway. You know what I
He was
mean?
a pounder. Goodness, Henry is broken out this year. I mean, he's been in the league for a couple of years, but goodness, he had a hell of a year this year.
Well, I think he had a coach that understood how to utilize that kind of a player. And he is a beast. He is I mean, there's no other words for that guy. I mean, you put Tennessee, most teams that you put on the field, offense and defense, and both both teams, home and away. He's 9 out of 10 times the best player on the field. The dude is an animal. But
And I saw a picture at the end of our game against the Titans in the divisional round. It was a picture of Ingram, and right next to him was RG3, and then right next to him was Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry's a tall son of a bitch. That's a big burly bastard.
dude, at the game, there was one snap. I remember my wife said to me, she's like, "Holy shit!" And I was like, "Huh?" And like, dude, when they would break the huddle, he's like bigger than their O line. The dude's a giant.
Yes, he's huge. And what I found hilarious was somebody had put a comment on this picture. It said, referring to RG3 as the mother, it says, "This looks like a mother introducing their child to the father for the first time."
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it was god damn, that dude is fucking huge. And he's got a burly chest. He's just, legs are fucking huge. Legs are probably bigger than my goddamn whole body.
Well, if you're Tennessee, who do you pay? I'm paying Henry. If I'm Tennessee, I'm not paying Tannehill. I'm paying. If I can only pick one, I think they're going to work something out, and they're both going to be in Tennessee.
Well, there is a crop of quarterbacks coming in this free agency that you could probably look to. So I would lean towards your decision there of saying pay Derrick Henry. I'd also see if I could throw the transition tag on Mr. Tannehill, to be honest with you.
I think that Tannehill's found a home, and if I'm Ryan Tannehill, I'm staying because he's got to start. He has a starting job. I don't think that there's any chance that Mariota would even be competing with him, if he's even with the team anymore. But I think that Tannehill, went to the Dolphins. He sucked there. He couldn't stay healthy. He was poorly coached. He's in. I don't want to say he's late in his career because he's not really, but the dude's beat the shit. So he's on the later side of his career where typically other quarterbacks would start to be on the decline. He's or could potentially be heading in that direction. And he's there. If I'm him, barring me getting $120 million contract from somebody else, which is not going to happen with him, with everybody else that's available in the draft and things of that nature, I'm taking what I can get and staying with Tennessee. I mean, you just won two playoff games with that team, and maybe I'll just do a prove it deal, like 1 year, maybe 2 years, something small, and stay with them.
Yeah.
And I would also, if I were him, I'd want to play with Derrick Henry for the rest of my fucking life because look how good Derrick Henry made him.
And Chad, your point of the 1 year, 2 year prove it deal, you got to think coming up. We've got next year, it's due the collective bargaining agreement.
Oh, yeah, and that could change the game.
The year after, if I'm not mistaken, the television deals are up with like CBS, Fox, ESPN. So they're going to renew. That's going to have a shitload of money coming in. They're either going to renew or pick somebody else, and they're going to get outbid, I'm sure. So that's going to be a boatload of money coming to potentially to the players. So the salary cap's just going to keep going up and up. At this point, if I were a top tier talent, I would just go for the smaller contracts and then really rely on that future.
Yeah, I would. One we're going to see it with is Pat Mahomes. I mean, he's going to be the telltale. I mean, if the kid wins Super Bowl MVP this year, it may pan out a little bit differently. But if I'm Pat Mahomes, I want to be franchised.
Yeah,
I
I
want to be franchised. Wait for that new CBA because I firmly believe he's going to be the first $200 million quarterback that we see.
that's a huge jump. I mean, you were talking about that earlier. I think I think he's going to cap out maybe 150.
I
Five.
disagree. I really believe that he is that team. They have a lot of pieces and weapons, man, but he's irreplaceable. He is irreplaceable, and they got lucky when he wasn't on the team and when he was hurt and won a game, whatever games they won. But they aren't winning a Super Bowl without him. They're not even getting to the Super Bowl without him. And we watched this season where they lost their running back last year. They can't run the ball for shit, or not well at least. They don't have a good running backs. They've got over the hill, washed up running backs. We saw at a point where Sammy Watkins was hurt and Tyreek Hill was hurt, and he was still throwing like 450 yards a game and a shitload of touchdowns. Like the kid makes everybody around him so good that you're crazy to not pay him. And I genuinely feel like that's the cost it's going to be, because there is going to be a quarterback needy team if that kid hits the market that'll say, you know what? Everybody else is offering this kid 150, 160, 170. We'll give you 200 million. I just think this was going to end up happening with him. And, I might be crazy and I'm probably wrong, but I've got a gut feeling that says that there's going to be a $200 million quarterback in the next 3 years, and it's going to be Pat Mahomes.
I think Pat Mahomes is going to be the gold standard moving forward as far as contracts are concerned. You got to think that's a huge jump. I think 130 is the highest paid right now for quarterbacks. That's 70 million you're talking there, Chad.
Who's the highest paid quarterback right now?
It's Russell Wilson.
Yeah, Pat Mahomes is going to smoke that deal.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think it's not going to be 70 million over though. I would say 20. I think that's fair. 150. But at the same time, you are right. He is the heart and soul of the team. I mean, for God's sakes, I think he honestly gets bored out there because he's doing shit like no-look passes, left-handed throws. He's doing Harlem Globetrotter shit out there.
Yeah, he is. I mean, like I said, I think the two most exciting quarterbacks in the league are Lamar Jackson and Pat Mahomes. And,
Absolutely.
for two different reasons, I think. But it's the same thing. We watched Lamar do some of that shit this year too, like throwing this sidearm stuff and like flipping under defenders and stuff like that. But if it's going to be a game where you got to throw the ball, I'm taking Pat Mahomes every day of the week. And if it's a game where they got to rely on running, I'm taking Lamar any day of the week. But they're both just unbelievable, exciting players. And next year is going to be interesting to see, because the Ravens will have the opportunity to extend Lamar at the end of last season too, or at the end of the next season too. But I think Pat Mahomes is a free agent, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
No, he's eligible this year at the end of the season for his new contract.
I'm talking about the end of next year.
End of next year, yeah, he will be at the end of his fourth year, but they're going to get the option, so he'll have his fifth year there. But he's eligible for the new contract now. After your third year of employment in the league, you're definitely eligible. But like you said, man, what's the rush? And honestly, I think the only rush that's going to happen is if he becomes the NFL Super Bowl MVP, and which is quite possible. Don't get me wrong.
I don't even think it's possible. I think it's highly likely.
It's quite up there as far as chances. So if that happens, I think the Chiefs are going to be fucking relentless and try to sign him like 30 seconds after he wins and goes to Disney, before he even gets to Disney.
They're paying for the plane and the trip.
Right. They may just buy Disney. Fuck it.
It might be cheaper.
Yeah. Patrick Mahomes has also had a hell of a season, even though he probably would have been MVP over Lamar if he had been healthy the whole season, but he missed 4 games, something like that.
Yeah, but I disagree with that. Pat Mahomes, don't get me wrong, he's setting the league on fire with the stuff that he's doing.
But so
Lamar, I don't think there's an argument to be made against Lamar where anybody else is relevant in it, only because of the records that he broke. And the guy did something this season that we haven't seen since Michael Vick, obviously, and we may not ever see again. Period. The kid was insane. He was insane, and I think that we got a little bit jaded as Baltimore fans. But I talked to my cousin Trent, who lives out in Utah, and when he's like, dude, I love watching the Ravens, and he's not a Ravens fan, but you have to think that what he did and the way he plays and the excitement that he brought to the game, there's a lot of exciting players, and I'm not taking anything from them. I thought that Christian McCaffrey, there was a strong argument to be made for him to be the league MVP, but his team wasn't that great this year. But dude, when you look outside of Maryland at the impact that Lamar made, towards the end of the season, there were other teams trying to mimic what he was doing. I mean, look at Chicago. Dude, Chicago has, shit Trubinsky, and they started running goal line plays exactly like what Lamar was doing and being successful with it. We literally watched in one season a kid in an offense make such an influence on everything surrounding them that I just don't think the argument can be made for anybody else. I just don't. And you know what? Even if Lamar didn't win all the games that he won, I still think there could have been an argument at that point for him to be the MVP of the league.
I got kind of pissed off when I saw the commercial for the NFL awards this year, the Associated Press and whatnot on NFL Network. They showed the picture. They said, who's going to be this year's MVP? And they put up a picture of Lamar and then right next to him a picture of Russell. I'm like, if that's the competition, that's a distant fucking second.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? Russell Wilson had a phenomenal season. I know you hate him, but the kid was very good this year. And if I were to look at it, I would even say that Russell Wilson would deserve it over Pat Mahomes at this point because he just had an incredible year.
Look,
And he didn't have a lot of parts around him either.
exactly. That's why I don't hate him anymore. I actually have a little bit of respect for him because he is that team right now.
Oh yeah,
His offensive line is shit. He's Tyler Lockett was his receiver, and he's pretty much done. Although that new guy they got from the second round last year got the ripped fucking wide receiver out of the draft.
yeah, he's nasty. I had him in fantasy.
Yeah, Metcalf. He had a hell of a season. Other than that,
He's going to be even better next year too.
and they got their running backs injured at the end of the season. They had to rely on goddamn Turbine and Lynch.
Dude,
And
didn't they have like a backup wide receiver or something in the final game of the season that took over at running back until they got Lynch, or like 2 games before the end of the year?
I wouldn't doubt it because they were down to the third string running back at that point, and I think he got injured too.
Yeah, he did. And but again, I think that Russell Wilson would be number 2, and I don't even think it's close. And maybe if Lamar wouldn't have broke Vic's record or things like that, but I mean the guy led the league in passing touchdowns. He had more rushing yards as a quarterback than 5 teams had. 5 whole teams didn't have as many rushing yards as Lamar Jackson. I mean, like, when you start to think about those little numbers, the Ravens tied a record for least punts in the NFL history. The least number of punts. Those are the stats to me that when I hear them, I'm like, holy shit. That's like what really wraps it into perspective for me of how like crazy that kid was. Watching him, you're like, oh wow, this is badass. But when you hear numbers like, oh, the Ravens past 4 games. In 4 games, they had only punted like 3 times, and RG3 was on the field in both. And then think about the fact that Lamar put up the numbers that he put up, and he sat out the equivalent of like a game and a half from being sat in the fourth quarter from destroying people, and sat out the last game of the season.
I mean, you got to think that playoff game that we had, I think we saw Cook in that game more than we did all season.
Oh, absolutely. We probably did more than the whole season combined. I mean,
it's funny. Like every week when I had friends over, my buddy Sean, my buddy Brandon, we would sit there and we would watch the game and we'd be like, who's this guy number 4? Koch? Who is that? Well, what's Hunter?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't want to keep talking about the Ravens, but I think that when it comes down to that MVP voting, I don't think there's an argument at all for anybody else. And, feel free to pose the argument. Anybody's welcome to, but he's going to win the MVP. And, I think it's well deserved, and especially a kid that's that age.
And by the way, that's at Chef Chad Wells if you want to send your hate mail to the Twitter machine there.
Yeah, go ahead and do it. Big trust.
All right. So we saw the game against the Patriots this season. That could have quite possibly been one of the last against the Ravens for one Tom Brady. What do you think?
I don't know, dude. If I'm using my head and thinking like a realist and what he means to that organization, I think Tom Brady is a Patriot again next year.
It makes sense.
If I think that Belichick gets his way, which I'm not convinced that he does, because Kraft obviously has the ultimate say. If Belichick has his way, Tom Brady's gone. I think that he's been done with him. I think he's done with him now. I think Brady was, I believe, like the number 7 passer in the league, and I think that's even inflated because they had games where he had a lot of trash time. Against the Ravens, I think he had 2 trash time touchdowns and like 250 passing yards after the game was well out of reach. He had the same thing when they played. What was it? Houston beat their ass.
Yeah, so
It was the
there's
same thing.
he had
He had like 2 whole games worth of trash time.
yeah, he had Blake Bortles stats, where he would inflate his numbers just in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that may be what got him. He clearly did not look like Tom Brady is supposed to look. He also, we have to be fair in talking about this. He didn't have the weapons they usually had.
Oh, I'm gonna stop you right there. That's bull.
He also got caught cheating a little earlier than they usually do.
Say it ain't so.
But I don't think that I don't think he had the weapons that he needed. He had some fucking good players. I mean, like there's definitely some good guys on that team. Their running backs were very good. Their O-line was suspect early on and got strong later. I think their defense was inflated by having a shit schedule. I don't think their defense was as good as they looked, especially not their front seven at all. But
Tom Brady took a step down this year.
Oh, he absolutely did. I'm not saying he didn't. I'm saying though, the only thing I'm saying is that the step down probably wouldn't have been as dramatic if he still had Gronk and some of those bits and pieces that they've had. I still think he would have stepped backwards. I thought he looked like he was stepping backwards a little bit last year too.
Well, yeah, you can't really replace Gronk, but at the same time, you got a bunch of former first round, at least worthy talent picks in your wide receiver class. You've got Ben Watson, who's still a pretty damn good tight end. Ah, come on, man! And then
I don't know if you noticed this at all. When Tom Brady tried to throw downfield this year, it looked like he was in pain. Like it looked like it was like his motion was really slow. Like you could tell what he was going to do. I think he would still pick you apart across the middle, but everybody knows that about him. And the other thing this season too, man, he's always been known to collapse under pressure. It was worse this year than I think I've ever seen with him.
There was one thing that I could always say about Brady. Whenever he wanted to avoid like the edge and whatnot, all he had to do was step up in the pocket. He was very good at that. He could not step up in the pocket this year to save his life. He was either petrified or he just could not make the physical move forward. He lost that step.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, Father Time's undefeated. I mean, the guy, there's only so long the guy can play, period. And we're definitely, if we didn't see the end, we are seeing the end. In real time. I think there's a lot of talk about where he's going to go, and I think that by the time the season starts, he's going to be in a Patriots uniform, or he's not going to be playing at all. That's what my gut tells me. I think there's a lot of other places that he could end up that makes sense. He could end up in Tampa Bay. He could end up closer to his wife and end up in Oakland. Shit. He could end up or Las Vegas, wherever the fuck they're going to be next year. He could be with the Chargers in LA.
I keep hearing LA Chargers. That's everybody keeps talking about that, and they just announced Thursday or Friday that they're moving on from Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, and that's sad, man. It's it is what it is. The guy had a great career. I would have really liked to seen Rivers win a Super Bowl. I think that he's been a good player, and
you gotta figure that Rivers saw the writing on the wall when he started moving to Florida.
Oh yeah, and he's he might be a guy that Tampa Bay looks at too. I mean, Tampa Bay's got to do something because Jameis Winston, man, that 30 for 30 shit. Holy hell, man! I mean, you're not going to win like that. You take away half of those interceptions, they'd have probably been almost undefeated.
I mean, Rivers did move to Florida, so it's not out of the realm for him to say hello to Tampa Bay. But I had to laugh the other day, Chad. Somebody had made a comment about when Rivers moved. So he was commuting from San Diego every day to LA.
Yeah.
The population of San Diego took a major hit when Phillip Rivers packed his family up and moved to Florida.
Hey, man, he might start an expansion team with his family.
Dude, he's got a whole fucking offense out there. He can fill one side of the line, and he's working on the other.
Yeah. But, dude, What do you think happens with Brady, man?
Um, at this point, I do believe he is either going to be a Patriot or not play at all. But I could also see in the rear view, in my peripheral, LAC being an option. I really could. You got to think this is also a Giselle decision as well. So if he's going to continue to play, it's going to be in a city where Giselle would thrive, would be happy. So you're not going to see her in like Cleveland or any of those other shitty cities. You're going to see him in a warm weather place like Miami is a possibility, for God's sake. Brian
I don't foresee that happening. I just
could happen. I'm saying it's more likely than him going to goddamn Chicago.
I think he's going to go to if he goes anywhere, he's going to go to a team where he thinks he has the best odds of being a winner. I don't think that Tom Brady gives a shit about cashing in one last time. He's fucking
No.
loaded as it is. His wife has more money than him. You know, I don't think any of that is relevant to him. I think that if he's going to play, maybe there's a part of him that says, you know what, I want to go to a team and not retire with a legacy of being a cheater, playing for a cheating organization, playing for this coach. I want to win on my own because I'm fucking Tom Brady. Maybe there's a part of him that says that. Maybe there's also a part of Belichick that says, I want to win without Tom Brady because I'm Bill Belichick and I can win without Tom Brady. Because there's always been that Brady Belichick thing. And, maybe part of them wants to cement their own legacies. I don't know. That's just some romanticized bullshit because, at the end of the day, Tom Brady could be like, fuck you, pay me and go play for the fucking Cincinnati Bengals for all I know. But I tend to agree that if he goes anywhere, it's going to be somewhere where his wife wants to be. I think they do have a home somewhere near LA as well.
He in San Fran, didn't he?
I don't know. It's somewhere in California.
Yeah, he 49ers fan at least. I know that much.
Yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if it happened, but I would say that I'm still pretty dead set that he's retiring a Patriot, and if that happens next year, it's next year. If not, he's going to sign a 1-year deal with the Patriots again.
Well, hopefully he gets a better send off than like Drew Bledsoe did.
Yeah. Well, another guy who said he's mulling over retirement that I really don't want to see happen is Drew Brees.
I was just about to actually bring that up. That was my third bullet point here, the future of the Saints QB position. That I'm actually pretty surprised at how well that QB depth chart is. And moving forward, there is a strong possibility. It's going to be up to Breeze at this point. And I think there's only one option. He wants to stay in New Orleans. He doesn't want to move on. If they want him, they're going to keep him. They're going to give him whatever. They're not going to give him whatever he wants. They're going to give him a fair contract for 1 year, and then tip the hat, say goodbye at the sunset, and start priming up Taysom Hill. Because you got to think, if they move forward with Drew Brees for 1 more year, it's going to be less and less plays every game. They're going to start getting Taysom Hill on there more to play quarterback because that's the future of the team.
Is Taysom Hill the future and Bridgewater the guy who fills the gap, or do they get rid of Bridgewater? Because
Bridgewater is a free agent moving forward.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think they're gonna make a strong push to re-sign him because can't forget they won every game he started, and
it's going to be really hard because you gotta pay Breeze. You got to. We're going into. I think this is restricted free agent time for Taysom Hill, so they're going to have to put a tender on him, and it's going to be a first round tender.
I don't know that Taysom Hill is going to even hit restricted free agency. Was he drafted, or was he an undrafted?
Don't know, but I know for a fact it's Taysom Hill. He's becoming a restricted free agent. Let me look up his spot track real quick
because I know most players that are drafted with the guaranteed contracts, they never get to see restricted free agency because of the option years that are included.
He was undrafted, but he did sign a 3-year contract, and he is a restricted free agent.
So he'd be restricted because he was not drafted. But most players that are drafted now, that's why we're seeing kind of the end of restricted free agency happening, because most players that are drafted, the way the CBA is outlined, they get those guaranteed rookie deals that last for 4 years with a fifth option or 3 years with a fourth option.
I did not realize this. He was a Packer when he first started.
Taysom Hill?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that either. But I mean,
2018, he started with the Packers. What a fucking crime that was to not keep him.
I want to see Drew Brees retire a Saint. I think San Diego did him dirty a little bit.
Can you imagine going to that franchise?
Fucking Ryan Leaf and Ryan Leaf and Ryan Leaf. Now, I really believed, I thought before the season that this was going to be the year of the Saints. I thought all through the year, up into the playoff game, I thought that they were going to be unstoppable. I even thought that if it was a Baltimore-New Orleans Super Bowl, that New Orleans was going to win. That's not a prediction I had before the season, but I did say I thought the Saints were going to win the Super Bowl this year. If you would have told me they'd have sucked that bad against the Vikings, and that was shocking. I like Drew Brees a lot. When you talk about the best quarterbacks of all time or the best quarterbacks in the game, I feel like he has been overshadowed for a lot of his career by Manning and Brady. I feel like he got left out of that conversation, but I think time and time again he proves that he's one of the most consistent, reliable quarterbacks in the NFL. He is the definition of a playmaker. He's a stand-up guy. He just seems like a class act. I'd hate to see him go out and go play for somebody else. I really hope that if he's going to retire, he does it as a Saint. I'd love to see another season of him playing. I'd love to see him come and cement that touchdown record to the point of make it real tough for anybody to surpass it.
I concur. I love Brees. I think he's one hell of a guy. He's a great person. The story of him even coming to New Orleans in the first place, he just felt like a connection because it was right after the Katrina incident. So he just felt a connection to that community. He's done a lot for that community. He's honestly, you can't tell the story of modern day NFL without Drew Brees.
No, I agree with that completely. And, a lot of people do, sadly. But, it is what it is. They're not, this wasn't their year. There could be the best teams in the league, and sometimes it's just not your year. I think the Saints were arguably one of the more complete teams in the league this year. And I think that he had a killer season, even though he missed a bunch of games. But, he broke the touchdown record this year, which is awesome to see. I like the milestones that he has, and if he's going to retire, I wish I would have known it a little sooner because I think I would have appreciated watching their games a little bit more this year.
Man, I'm sitting here thinking about the past couple seasons. I don't believe in luck, but God damn it. If it weren't for bad luck, they wouldn't have any luck in New Orleans the past couple seasons. You got to think of the Minnesota Miracle 2 seasons ago, and then that pass interference situation with the Rams last year in the playoffs to end their season.
Yep.
Just freak last second things that separated them from going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they were the Super Bowl team last year. They were, and I thought that was going to carry them all the way to the Super Bowl this year.
They would have fucked the Patriots day up.
And I could not imagine what it must have, how pissed off I would have been if I were a diehard Saints fan after that game last year. I mean, the NFL tried to save face and change a rule, which they really just put on paper because they never did shit with it all season. I honestly think that replay system they put in place, or the challengeable pass interference, made it worse. I think it made the calls worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know.
And
they're going to have to readjust that.
It was sporadic and subject to the officials' mood that day, basically.
Actually, interesting you brought that up. The officiating crew from that Saints game who blew that pass interference call, that's who's officiating. That's the crew officiating the Super Bowl.
That is true. I did hear that, and that's it's fucking amazing. You know who deserves to be it?
It's an absolute disgrace.
You know who deserves to be the referee every year in the Super Bowl?
Who?
Jerome Boger.
Yeah.
That's my man. Love that guy. Pass interference, number 67. 1-yard penalty, automatic first down. Love it, man. He was our referee for our Super Bowl 42.
Yep. Speaking of the Super Bowl, We should end with this. But what are we thinking here?
Eesh. Oof. You know, on paper, I think the more complete team is the 49ers, but I think that the playmaker and the one that may win it all is Patrick Mahomes. So I think, gun to my head, I'm going to say Mahomes is Super Bowl MVP and he wins it for his team.
I would love to say I disagree with you, but I don't.
You would love to do that.
I there's a lot telling me from looking at the matchups that the 49ers are going to handedly win this game. You know, they always say defense wins championships. The running game matters. The Chiefs can't run the ball. They're not going to be able to run the ball in San Francisco. I think that the Chiefs defense through the stretch has gotten better. I think they're better than they appear because they were pretty horrific early on. The addition of Terrell Suggs adds some leadership. The guy still can play a role in setting the edge. I think that he can keep people like Mostert on the outside, can keep him in and let the people on the inside do their job. So I don't think that San Fran's going to have trouble running, but I think that they're going to have to rely more on Garoppolo, and which would put it down to quarterback versus quarterback essentially. And clearly, the better quarterback of the two is Mahomes. The 49ers defense, I thought through the majority of the season was looked better than they actually were because of who their opponents were. But then down the stretch, they played some very good teams. And I think that defense is the truth. I think they're legit. I think they're really good. I just don't think that they have anybody who can stop the speed that the Chiefs present. They could just beat you in so many ways on offense, and they can do it so fucking fast that I think that with a team like them, they throw traditional wisdom away of saying, all right, time of possession, keep the ball, don't put it in Mahomes' hands. You're not going to keep the ball out of his hands for 60 minutes. And I think Mahomes might struggle a little bit early in that game. I think that he might have some problems, but
Where I
they're,
think the problem is, Chad. That's where I think the problem is. If Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs get behind like they were in the past two playoff games, what they spotted the Texans 21 points, you spot 17 points or whatever to the 49ers, you may not come back. You may not.
you may or you may not. I don't know, man. Like I think. I mean, how are they going to stop? Like, how do you stop? First of all, how do you stop Travis Kelce? How do you stop him? You don't. If you look at both teams' offenses, there's two of the greatest tight ends in the game right now. It's Kittle and Kelce.
Uh-huh.
Kelce is the better of the two. And I think he's better on every fucking level. How do you stop him? Right? There's your first thing. Now, if you can figure out how to stop him, how the fuck do you stop Tyreek Hill and Watkins and that rookie Robinson? How do you stop them? Like, the way that offense is designed, the only time you stop the Chiefs is you can stop them and shut them down in the red zone a little bit better than anywhere else. But look at Travis Kelce in the fucking red zone. You don't stop that guy. You know what I mean? Like, you can sure as shit stop their running backs, but you can stop their receivers in the red zone. But the Chiefs they don't care about the red zone. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at their plays, they're a big, big, big play offense. Like they'll throw the ball way downfield, and if you shut them out downfield, they'll make you pay over the middle, and their yards after the catch are obscene. So, I want San Francisco to win this game. Believe it or not, like I'm rooting for San Francisco to win, and the only reason I am is they play that smash mouth football that I really like to watch. I'm rooting for San Francisco. I just don't see it happening. I don't see how they're going to have an answer for this. And, I think that this is the best offense that they've faced. They faced the Ravens offense, but this is like another side of the coin in terms of offense. I just don't see how they're going to stop them. And, I think the 49ers have the better defense, but I don't think that you can they're not going to be able to put the game on Garoppolo's back. And I think that, Garoppolo might beat him here and there a couple times, but he's not winning a game.
Now, I think the determining factor here is going to be San Fran's offense, believe it or not. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it. They relied a lot on the run this postseason. But if the Chiefs are able to stop the run, can you rely on Jimmy Garoppolo, who against the Vikings in the divisional playoffs went 11 for 19 for 131 yards, a touchdown and an interception? And give a guess what his stats were for the NFC Championship against the Packers.
I think he only threw the ball like 8 times.
He attempted 8. He completed 6. Went 77 yards. No touchdowns, no picks. This kind of pisses me off. His passer rating's 104.7 for that game.
Well, like it's about efficiency, man. That's what they were doing with Tannehill. Make your passes matter, and his passes mattered. He didn't need to throw the ball. And Shanahan is that coach. If it's working, we're going to do it. I mean, look what they did when they played in Baltimore. They ran outside over and over and over. They'll run the same play. It's like playing a 5-year-old in Madden. If it's working, it's working.
But what I'm getting at is, can Garoppolo actually do it if put on his shoulders?
No. Has he ever? No. He hasn't.
Never. He really hasn't.
So what makes you think that he can suddenly do it in the Super Bowl?
Let me just look.
He's not, and go look at their schedule this year, and look at his best games where he was throwing 300 yards, whatever. He didn't do that against a good defense at all this year.
He only had 3 games, over 300, and that was against the Saints for 349. He threw 424 against. Take a guess on this one.
I don't know.
Cardinals.
Yeah, Arizona, trash ass fucking defense.
And he threw 300 against 317. Wow, against the Cardinals again.
Yeah, so
games over 300 this season. His quarterback rating is a 58.8 on the season. In the playoffs, his quarterback rating is a 47.2.
It's not good, man.
It's not. He's.
I mean, how many touchdowns does he have?
For the season, he has, let's see here, passing 27 and 13 interceptions. He has 1 rushing touchdown.
Okay, so that's not horrible at all. Which means he's super efficient with his passes. So he's only but that's also the dreaded word. That's game manager status, dude. I mean, he's a game manager. And they might just be taking steps with him, man, because, we can still look at it in terms of like he's essentially a rookie. Even though he played for a couple years, he's a rookie starter at least because he didn't really play last year. And he did look pretty ridiculous the first season when he came in those last couple games for them. But I don't think that he's the quarterback that's going to come out there and sling the ball and get into a shootout with Pat Mahomes and win.
No fucking chance.
And that's what I think that game ultimately is going to have to turn into, because they're going to have to, the Chiefs are going to have to try very, very hard to gas the 49ers defense early. And the only way you can do that is either by running the ball or dink duck shit all over the place. Or you just put it right over their fucking heads, give them the middle finger, and throw touchdowns. And, the Chiefs, I feel like they're capable of doing any of those things except running the ball.
Yeah, the Chiefs cannot run the ball this season.
And they are not going to. And, the other thing, though, is that the 49ers, and this is another aspect that tilts in the favor of the 49ers, though, their front seven's vicious, man. Like, they will get to Pat Mahomes. They will get to him. He will probably have a turnover or 2 in that game. And,
dude, what are you talking about? They got some guy named Bosa on there. What's that family done this year?
Yeah, but I mean, if they get to him and they get to him early, they can force some mistakes. And we saw that the Chiefs, they'll make some mistakes. They did it, but you know what? They haven't lost because of it yet.
Sure.
So, I think that the 49ers could really they're going to have to they're going to have to play a complete game and they're going to have to play a perfect game if they want to win. And are they capable of it? Absolutely. This is two very well coached teams too. The coaching is very good. I think this is actually a great matchup. It's legitimately like offense versus defense, running offense versus passing offense. So like I said, I would love to see the 49ers win. I just believe that the Chiefs have too much firepower for them to stop.
I agree 100%. I heard this on a radio show the other day. Think about this. You're sitting in DC right now and you're nursing your broken ass leg and you're Alex Smith. Who are you rooting for? The team that replaced you with Colin Kaepernick or the team that replaced you with Patrick Mahomes?
I'm rooting for the Chiefs if I'm him. I think the 49ers fucked him.
Yeah, they did him very dirty.
The Chiefs, the Chiefs didn't fuck him over.
No, they made it very clear what they were going to do, and Alex Smith embraced it and taught Patrick Mahomes, I'm sure, quite a bit.
And Alex Smith got paid, so
yeah,
I don't think he really gives too much of a shit. But I did the 49ers. I feel like they really screwed him. Like the dude gets injured after having a killer year. And was killer in the playoffs the year before, and then loses his job and never even gets the opportunity to compete for it back. I just thought it was kind of shitty, but
wasn't he leading in quarterback rating before he got injured in 2012?
He had the best quarterback rating in the league.
That's honestly he's this generation's Trent Dilfer as far as game management, but if that's the standard, then god damn it, he's
better. He's better. Yeah. He's better than Trent Dilfer ever was, dude. I don't know. I almost question at times why he got that he's just a game manager mentality tag put on him, because he's been better, man. Like, you looked at some of the games he won in San Francisco, man. Like, he won games. Like, he was a very solid quarterback, especially the year they were in the playoffs. The year before Kaepernick, I think they played the Saints.
Yes,
he was just had a nasty game in that. Like, he won the game. Like
one of my favorite games to watch. Honestly, it was like in the 30s as far as the score.
Yeah, and just like when he had to play, he played, man. And I think he put out some good years with the Chiefs too, if I recall.
He had some decent. He had some weapons on both teams. To be honest with you, I mean, when you're on a team with Frank Gore and you're able to establish the run in San Fran, then you got Crabtree on the outside. And did they get Garcon out there? I can't remember.
I don't remember who else he had.
Yeah, but he had Vernon Davis.
Yeah, Vernon Davis was there.
At his prime, and that was a damn good tight end. Now, but God, speaking of ain't shit now, he's still in the Redskins, if I'm not mistaken. What's going on, man? What the fuck? If I was Rivera, man, why would you even consider that job?
Money.
Even so,
money. I mean, they keep talking about how they're trying to change that culture. I'm just not fucking buying it, man. Like, Dan Snyder has got to be the worst owner in all sports. There was an ESPN thing I saw that was like scathing from one of their hosts, who's actually a Redskins fan, was talking about how embarrassing it is to be a Redskins fan, and about how their stadium is literally not even a football stadium for the Redskins. It's just, he said something like it's just a venue for other teams' fans to come watch their football teams win. Like, which is like, when you think about that, and being people that have seen this stadium, that's what it really is, man. Like, they can't even give tickets. Dude, they're doing things where, like, you buy a Pepsi and get 5 free tickets, essentially, and they can't get rid of them.
Dude, I had my fucking speed limit when I was in DC last time, because instead of getting a traffic ticket, they tried giving me Redskin tickets.
But, I mean, yeah. I mean, maybe they are. I think Jack, to the naked eye, Rivera and Jack Del Rio, that's going to be a fucking dynamite coaching staff. But to the naked eye, man, look how many good coaches they've fucked, or they've just ruined. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think Jay Gruden was a bad coach.
Name a bad coach outside of like Jim Zorn that they've had. They've brought like big time coaches in there.
They had
can't do shit with them.
Yeah. It was an awful sight. Schottenheimer was there for a while. God, what was the I don't know why I'm blanking on this, and I'm gonna get crucified for this one. The one who won all those Super Bowls for him.
Hold on, I'm looking something up real quick.
Riveting podcasting again. Gibbs.
Yeah, Gibbs. They had Callahan, Shanahan, Gibbs, North Turner was there.
Okay, maybe Norv was okay. Yeah, Norv was probably bad.
Hold on.
He was a Chargers head coach for a while too.
Yeah,
he
was their coach for a long time. They were in the playoffs almost every year when he was their coach.
That's one of those guys who was a much better offensive coordinator than they were head coach, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so I think Gibbs is probably their longest tenured coach.
Yeah, he came back too. I think he's still got a thing for like NASCAR or something. He's got a car that he owns through them. He's sponsoring a driver or something like that.
Yeah,
that's true passion. But he came back like in the early 2000s, and he couldn't even save that damn team.
All right, so in reality, they've not had a good season
Since RG.
The RG3 season was something, but not a great one. It was something. So we can go back to 1970s. 1969. Let's go back to 1969. Their coach was Vince Lombardi. What year did Snyder buy the team?
It wasn't in the 90s?
Was it late 90s, early 2000s?
Dan Snyder.
Because they've had, I'm pretty sure that, was it Rubisky was his first coach? Or was it North Turner?
I think it was Norv. Facility franchise. 2003. In 1999. Okay, he got it from Jack Kent Cook in 1999. So
yeah, his first coach was North Turner.
Yeah.
So you had North Turner, Terry Rubisky, Marty Schottenheimer, Steve Spurrier, Joe Gibbs, Jim Zorn, Mike Shanahan, Jay Gruden, and now Ron Rivera. Out of all of those coaches, Norv Turner was the longest tenured, 6 years. After that, Rubisky, 1 year. Schottenheimer, 1 year. Steve Spurrier, 2 years. Joe Gibbs came back he was there for 4 years. Or 3 years, I'm sorry. Jim Zorn, 1 year. Shanahan, 3 years. Gruden, 5 years. Like, the average shelf life of a coach when you factor in all those ones is like 2 years with that team. And I don't think Ron Rivera is going to be any different.
And it sucks because I have a lot of respect for Rivera. I think, I think his playing days were pretty damn good. And he wasn't a bad coach for Carolina. And even going up the chain, he was a good defensive assistant. So he's had a hell of a career. But honestly, like I said, man, I would not have taken that position. I feel like he could have been offered another position and taken it for another team. But he just went with the first one that offered him something. Yeah. And they probably throw him a shitload of money.
Man, I'd have fired Jim Zorn's ass too, man. That motherfucker was 12 wins and 20 losses.
I've seen coaches with worse records.
Yep. Dude, Gruden was 35 and 50.
It's closer than I thought, to be honest with you.
It's just crap, man. And he had 1 tie. Yeah, man, they suck. They just suck.
They did make one decent decision this past season, off season, and that was to get rid of their vice president of whatever the fuck that position is, Bruce Allen. He was basically the GM, and they reassigned Doug Williams. I don't know if you knew this, but the former quarterback of the team, Doug Williams, was actually their general manager or one of the people in the main office. He got reassigned to another position within the Redskins organization. So I think they're still looking for another GM, or they have recently picked up another GM. I haven't looked into it too much because I like to keep those guys far away from me.
You know, the other. Wait a minute. Josh Woodrum is a Redskins quarterback now.
Sounds about right.
I just want to see. Okay, so
Yeah, he was in the QB room when Alex Smith was coming by and giving all his opinions and whatnot. I think he's third string.
all right, so since he bought the team, you want to hear something insane?
Yes, I do.
All right, since 1999, Brad Johnson, Jeff George, Tony Banks, Jeff George, Shane Matthews. 2002 they started Shane Matthews, Patrick Ramsey, and Danny Werfel. I don't even know who the fuck he is. 2003. These are every name I'm saying. This isn't first string, second string. This is who they started that season. 2003, Patrick Ramsey, Tim Hasselbeck. 2004, Tim Brunell, Patrick Ramsey. Or Mark Brunell, Patrick Ramsey. 2005, Mark Brunell, then Patrick Ramsey. 2006, Mark Brunell, Jason Campbell. 2007, Jason Campbell, Todd Collins.
We're getting close to Grossman.
So 2008 and 2009, Jason Campbell was their starter for 2 years straight. Then 2010, Donovan McNabb, then Rex Grossman. 2011, Rex Grossman, then John Beck. 2012, RG3, Kirk Cousins. 2013, RG3, Kirk Cousins. 2014, RG3, Kirk Cousins, Colt McCoy. 2015, 16, 17 was Kirk Cousins. That's the most consistent quarterback that they've had. They had three years of the same starter. Was it since Snyder has bought that team. 2018, Alex Smith, Josh Johnson, Colt McCoy, and Mark Sanchez. 2019, Case Keenum, Dwayne Haskins, and Colt McCoy. They've started like 35 quarterbacks since 2000.
They're rivaling the Browns now.
Yeah, that's just obscene. So of course they're not going to fucking win like this. Like they've made nothing good. The best quarterback they probably ever had is Sammy Baugh in 1937.
Yeah.
I mean, like, just, you talk about garbage. It's not even worth talking about. That's Sonny Jurgensen.
Honestly, 2 out of 3 of their 2 out of 3 of their quarterbacks that they won the Super Bowl with weren't that good. I mean, Doug Williams, average at best, in my opinion. The fuck was the other guy's name? Mark something or other. Mark Rippon.
Yep.
Yeah, that was just the 80s and 90s equivalent to Joe Flacco. He was really good at the deep ball. It was, God, he was a MVP of the Super Bowl too. That's fucking amazing to think about. But yeah, Joe Theismann was and it's amazing. Gibbs is the only guy who's won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different starting quarterbacks.
Who was the third? Was it
Theismann?
Was it Theismann? Who? Yeah, my God, man, this has been just disgusting.
Were you just about to say Gus Frerotte, man?
Gus Frerotte played for them several years, left and came back. I just pulled up their history of quarterbacks again.
I forgot about that name. Oh God, he was awful.
Yeah, man, fuck that team. Fuck that team.
And everything they stand for. I mean, God, the stadium is shit. Honestly, they could probably go back to RFK and have a better time there.
Yeah, the parking is horrific. The football's terrible. The ownership sucks. So
right now, it's like what San Fran was about 5 years ago. There's nobody showing up.
Nope, and they're not going to because they're going to be terrible again.
I don't blame them at this point. I mean, it sucks to be a diehard Redskins fan, which I'm not sure even exists anymore. But
oh, they do, man. I live in Redskins territory. They definitely exist. I feel bad for them, man. Like a lot of people I know are like I keep telling them, I'm like, come to the fucking dark side and start watching the Ravens. They just won't do it.
I work with a lot of people being where I am that are Redskins fans, and even some of those guys are like, you know what? I think I'm going to start wearing a little more purple.
They should. They should have done that a long time ago.
Yeah, and not that.
96. So, all right, man. So with that, I'm about to sign out here.
Yeah, you've got to. Oh, goodness. For those of you that don't
get up at 4 in the morning.
Yeah, it's midnight here. For those of you that don't know when we're taping, sorry to keep you up this long. God, how long did we go? Hour and 39. Appreciate your time today, man.
Man, we got to do it more often. I'm sorry that we haven't had the time to do this to everyone, all 2 of you that listen.
Yeah.
But we're gonna get on it. We did this a lot in the off season, and I think that we'll be doing a lot more of it in the off season again too. And I look forward to us putting in some more time and actually putting together formats like we're used to. You know, it's been so long since CJ and I got to shoot the shit that we were like, hey, let's do it tonight. Let's just talk some shit. Super Bowl's coming up, and we haven't done this almost all season, so we'll be back at it again soon. We'll get some good guests. Things of that nature, and we'll be rocking and rolling again soon.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and I quite frankly, I feel really bad that I didn't get a chance really too much this season to do much of a podcast, but I guess we're more of an off-season team, it seems like. So we'll put together the best content we possibly can going into the off-season. I somehow have got more time now that I can work with the podcast, so I'm going to do what I can for you guys and pump out as much content as possible. I'm going to try once again for once a week, maybe twice a week if you're lucky. You can hear my beautiful, sexy chocolate voice all through the off season. And Chef Chad is always welcome on the show, as he always knows. We'll see who we can get as far as a guest moving forward. Looking forward to what we've got coming up this off season. We're going to talk free agency. We got the draft coming up. We'll talk about the fallout of the Super Bowl next week. We'll see what happens moving forward. Who's the Super Bowl MVP? Got a feeling I know who's going to be on the cover of Madden coming up.
Yeah, me too.
And I got a bad feeling about that moving forward.
I don't.
I hope that he's the one that turns it around.
Break the curse.
Yeah. Because it even happened to Patrick this year. He was out for, 4 games?
Yep.
Even if it's a little curse, it's still...
Ain't happening to number 8.
I fucking hope not, man. God. I almost don't want him to be on the cover just for that. If it's truly a curse.
Don't care, neither does Lamar. Big trust.
He just wants to go to the Super Bowl. That's all he's thinking about.
Big trust.
Big trust, motherfucker. All right, guys. Thank you very much for your time. We'll tune in next week. And Chad, you have a good night, buddy.
You have a good night now. We'll catch up with you soon. Good night, everyone.